Not one is the same times in our lives. We've all been down, pushed too much around, learning to move along. Hey, how you guys doing today? Thought I'd come here today to a very tranquil, relaxing creek over near that park I like to go to where the lake is. Got bored, needed to get out of the house, got restless, so here I am. I wanted to talk today about living in tremendous fear to the point where it's paralyzing. And that's what it was like for me for my young childhood life and into my teenage years and at times into my early adult life. But I can remember certain instances where my introversy would hold me back from enjoying myself at events with my family. I was just so painfully shy and also just a nervous wreck all the time. I hid it by being quiet when I was around people. I mean, if I was with like my friends playing, then I wasn't shy. But when we would go out places as a family, when I was a young child, adolescent, very young teenager, I was very painfully so shy that I would just freeze up. And a lot of that had to do with all the bullying that I endured from my father that made me afraid to show emotions or express myself when I wasn't alone. And it made it really hard for me to deal with just social situations, basically, where I really didn't know much of anybody or knew very few people, especially if it was a lot of people. So, for example, we went to, I remember going to a wedding. It was for a cousin, I believe, one of my older cousins. And it was, you know, of course, my parents and both my brothers. And when we got there, and I'm going to say I was a little older at this point. I'm going to say I was maybe 11 or 12 maybe. And I remember when we got there, I remembered when you go to weddings, you usually have assigned seating, and a lot of times I didn't get to sit with my parents, and usually me and my brothers would sit at what was called like the kids' table with all like the little kids. So I was used to that. I expected to be seated at a table where all the little kids were. So I was pretty comfortable with that. Even though I still was going to be quiet, I was at least comfortable with it. Well, we ended up, me and, I think it was me and my older brother, got seated at a table. All these people I didn't know. It was one of those round tables that seats about, I don't know, say 8 to 12 people. So, I mean, it was a pretty fancy wedding, I guess. And I think my younger brother got seated at the table with the little kids. And I remember sitting down, and to my left was a very attractive young couple. They were probably in their early 20s. And it was kind of a blur. I just remember being at a table with much older people than I expected to be. And I want to say much older, I don't mean like, you know, my parents' age, but I expected to be at a table with either young children or young teens, and instead I was with young adults. And I was like frozen in fear. I I didn't talk to anybody. I was, I start sweating. I have that hyperhidrosis. You know, I know that now as an adult, but as a kid, I didn't know what I had. I just knew when I was nervous, I'd sweat a lot. And I was nervous when I ate my food. I would just sit there real rigid, and I remember looking down probably most of the time. Wouldn't make eye contact with people, was just looking down. And I can still feel that anxiety I felt, and that was a long time ago. And I just felt so like, God, I didn't want to be there. And I literally would just, I didn't even get up to go to the restroom, even though I had to, because I was so inhibited and so like neurotically introvert, that I just sat in my chair and wouldn't talk to anybody or make eye contact with anybody. And then I remember, I think the dance floor, it wasn't like directly like right behind me, right exactly where I was sitting, but I had to turn around in my chair to see, I guess they had I don't know if it was a DJ or a band or whatever. So I remember turning around in my chair at some point in the evening, and I think it was after we had our meal, and watching whatever activity was going on. And I stayed that way for the rest of the night. I was frozen. I remember being turned around in my chair and grasping it had like a round back top to the chair. It's amazing how much you can remember. It was so long ago. It was one of those like upholstered chairs for the dining room table, but I remember it had like an arched back to it, and I think it was like a golden chrome or whatever. And I remember turning around and just holding on it with both hands, raced to this thing like it was saving my life. Like I dare not let go of it, or I'd fall into a pit of hell. And I remember the people around me were, I remember them being nice and friendly and polite, but I just was scared to death to interact with any of them. So, sorry, I think I hear some people walking. Yeah, let's cut this out of my video. So, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I'm pretty sure the couple next to me were trying to talk to me. I remember vaguely something about them, just, you know, what's your name, or hi, how are you, or just something. And I remember just not even talking to them. Probably thought this was the weirdest kid. And I just remember clutching the top of that chair and being turned around and watching with my back to the people at the table I was with. And I stayed like that for the rest of the evening. And we were there probably at least an hour or two more after that. And I was terrified to get up out of my chair, and I just stayed in that position, clutched to the top of that chair. And I remember feeling incredibly scared and terrified, and I just wanted to go home. I didn't want to be around these people I didn't know. I was always intimidated by my peers, or granted, I was only like 12 or 13. They weren't my peers, but or young, like, teenagers and young 20-somethings. I just, I did hear people talk. Got distracted. There's a little kind of bridge back behind me, little walkover pass thing. And it was like, I get so distracted. Anyhow, so I can recall just feeling so terrified and miserable, and I really just wanted to go home. And I was looking forward to going to it, because usually it's really good food, and and I figured I'd be with my brothers and some of my cousins that were my age, but I didn't expect to be sat at a table with a bunch of strangers. And but I could still remember that night pretty vividly. It's just that element of it, of sitting at that table, clutching that chair like my life depended on it. And I remember being incredibly, just very tense the whole time, and sweating, and just miserable. And I was so upset because I couldn't enjoy myself. it was very surreal that I would, especially now I think about it, how much I missed out on in life from having episodes like that, where it really was sheer panic and high stress from the environment I was in, not feeling safe, feeling vulnerable, introvert. I look back and I feel so sorry. Well, I hate the word sorry, but for myself, I don't like to self-pity, but I did. I felt so sorry for that young lady that didn't get to enjoy a lot of things that she did get to go to, but I was just always so frozen in fear that there were a lot of things in life as a child and adolescent and even young adult that I experienced negatively, wanted to enjoy an experience but couldn't because my anxiety, my PTSD and anxiety was just so elevated that it just was miserable at times when I shouldn't have been. Should have been enjoying moments, and I just couldn't. It just wasn't meant to be. And I did suffer that a lot as an adult too. I mean, I have my PTSD, and I've overcome my being introvert, and I don't freeze up anymore. And if I'm not comfortable in a situation, then I just leave it. You have that luxury as an adult, but yeah, for a long time, I was enduring social situations that I did really want to be. I did want to be at, but couldn't enjoy the way I really wanted to. And I'd be so envious seeing other people just being themselves, just naturally being themselves. They didn't have to work at it. It was just, they were who they were, enjoying themselves, whether it was when I was a child or a teenager or an adult, observing the confidence that people would have. And they didn't have to be like an extrovert type of confidence. In fact, extroverts annoyed the crap out of me. Most extroverts I was around, or can be around, are usually a pain in the ass. And they're always, look at me, look at me. It's like, I think that's from a lack of self-esteem, but that's a whole other issue. But it was more just people being comfortable in their skin. How much envious I was of that. So I do reach out to the young lady that I was, the young child, the young Karen that endured a lot of pain, inner turmoil, and nobody had a clue. And it was really a shame too that my mom lacked empathy and was narcissistic at times and self-centered, that she couldn't even see how depressed and withdrawn her daughter was. Or maybe she did see it, but either didn't know how to handle it, or I really don't think that was it. I just don't think she noticed. I don't think she had that filter in her, or that emotion in her to be able to see the pain I was in, to talk to me. We just never had that mother-daughter connection. And I really could have used that many times in my life. So I've learned to be independent and fend for myself. But again, this is, as I've mentioned many times before, this is the common theme with the childhood abuse. And I'm talking particularly about parental abuse of their children, the psychological elements it can have on you destroying your character, not allowing you to grow and evolve and discover yourself. I'm just glad I was able to, in my adult life, it took and it takes tremendous work and dedication and strong desire. I don't have to work as hard as I used to, not by long shot, but I was determined to make myself a better person. I knew I was a good person on the inside. I just wanted to be a better person on being able to interact and socialize with people in a healthier way than through either shutting down in fear or getting angry, which is what I went through as I started finding my voice. I went through periods of being overly reactively angry at things that I shouldn't have. But I guess that's all part of my journey and growing. So again, PTSD wreaks havoc on one's life in countless ways and can pop up at any time when you least expect it. So developing coping mechanisms and recognizing your weaknesses and admitting your weaknesses is a big part of the healing. Recognizing, identifying with what you want to improve about yourself and learning not to blame other people for everything that's bad in your life. Now, I'm not saying I'm not, I can definitely blame my parents for a huge part of that. But I've learned how not to always fall back on that as my scapegoat, but realize that's might be where it all stemmed from. But it's up to me to make the changes to be a better person and be more optimistic and positive. And that helps you socialize better with people, become more interactive because you're more likable when you like yourself. So, y'all take care. Peace. Have a great day. We all have pain. Not one is the same. Times in our lives